My name is Miranda Cole. I'm 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I buried my identical twin sister under a name that wasn't hers. Her husband stood at the funeral with tears streaming down his face, playing the grieving widower so convincingly that even I almost believed him. Almost. But I'm a forensic accountant. I've spent 15 years following money trails that criminals thought they'd buried. And I knew, standing there watching him sob into his silk handkerchief, that my sister didn't die the way he said she did. So I did something that would either expose the truth or destroy me. I became her. I walked back into her life, into her home, into her marriage. And when Marcus Reid saw me standing in his kitchen 3 days after the funeral, when he saw his dead wife smiling at him, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. Pure, primal terror. Not shock, not relief, not confusion. Terror. The kind of terror that only comes from seeing a ghost you thought you'd successfully buried. And that's when I knew. My sister didn't die in her sleep like the death certificate claimed. She was murdered. And I was going to prove it. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand who Melissa and I were before this nightmare started. We weren't just twins. We were mirrors, two halves of the same soul. Born 4 minutes apart, me first, then Melissa. Our mother used to say I came into the world angry and Melissa followed crying, and that set the pattern for our entire lives. I was the fighter. She was the gentle one. I became a forensic accountant, hunting down white-collar criminals. She became a music teacher, nurturing children's creativity. We looked exactly alike. Same auburn hair, same green eyes, same freckles scattered across our noses like constellations. Even our voices were identical, that slightly husky alto that ran in our family. Growing up, we used to switch places constantly. I'd take her math tests, she'd go to my piano recitals. We could fool anyone. Teachers, friends, even our own father sometimes. It was a game back then. Innocent. Fun. We never imagined that one day I'd use that ability to hunt down her killer. After college, our paths diverged. I moved to Chicago, building my career, becoming one of the best forensic accountants in the Midwest. I tracked money for the FBI, testified in federal court, put away embezzlers and fraudsters. Melissa stayed in our hometown of Asheville, teaching music at the elementary school where we'd both gone as kids. She married Marcus Reid when she was 30. I was supposed to be her maid of honor, but I was in the middle of a major case in Denver. I missed the wedding. That's a regret I'll carry for the rest of my life. Marcus was everything Melissa thought she wanted. Handsome, successful, charming. He owned a luxury car dealership, 3 locations across North Carolina. Money, status, the kind of life Melissa had never had growing up in our working class. Family. He swept her off her feet with expensive dinners, weekend getaways, promises of the life she deserved. I met him twice, once at their engagement party, once at Christmas 3 years ago. Both times, something felt off. The way he touched her, always gripping her arm just a little too tight. The way he answered questions directed at her. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was trained to see criminals everywhere. But Melissa was happy, or so she said in her emails and our monthly phone calls. She talked about the beautiful house Marcus bought, the vacations to Cabo and Paris, the country club membership. She seemed fine. No, she seemed perfect. And that, I would later realize, was the first red flag. The calls started getting shorter about 2 years into the marriage. She was always busy, always had somewhere to be, always had Marcus waiting for her. Our monthly calls became quarterly, then just holidays. I tried to visit, but there was always an excuse. The house was being renovated. Marcus's mother was staying with them. Melissa wasn't feeling well. I was too busy with my own life, my own cases, my own career to push harder. God, I wish I had pushed harder. The last time I spoke to Melissa was 6 weeks before she died. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I was reviewing bank statements for an embezzlement case, and I needed a break. I called her cell. She picked up on the 4th ring. Miranda? Her voice sounded strange, thin, strained, like someone had wrapped their hands around her throat and squeezed just enough to leave damage. Hey, Mel, just wanted to hear your voice. How are you? There was a long pause, too long. In the background, I heard a door open, then Marcus's voice, smooth and pleasant. Honey, who's on the phone? It's Miranda, Melissa said, and I heard something in her tone that made every instinct I had start screaming. Oh, wonderful! Tell your sister hello from me. We miss her. Marcus's voice was closer now, like he was standing right next to Melissa, right behind her. We talked for maybe 3 more minutes. Melissa told me everything was great. Business was booming for Marcus. She'd just been promoted to head of the music department. They were thinking about having a baby. Every word sounded scripted, rehearsed, like she was reading from a script someone else had written. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Melissa, I said quietly. Are you okay? Really okay? Another pause. Then so softly, I almost missed it. I have to go. Love you. She hung up. I stared at my phone, that sick feeling in my gut growing heavier. I told myself to call her back. I told myself to book a flight to Asheville that weekend. I told myself a lot of things. But I had depositions scheduled. I had court appearances. I had a life that was too busy to make room for a sister who said she was fine. That was the last time I heard Melissa's voice. 4 weeks later, I got the call from Marcus. It was 6:47 in the morning. I was getting ready for work, drinking coffee, reviewing case notes. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Miranda? Marcus's voice was devastated, broken, barely recognizable. Miranda, it's Marcus. I have terrible news. It's Melissa. God, I don't know how to say this. She died last night, in her sleep. They think it was an aneurysm. The world stopped. Everything just stopped. My coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. Hot liquid everywhere, ceramic shards, but I didn't feel any of it. I couldn't feel anything. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I woke up this morning and she was just gone. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. The paramedics said she wouldn't have felt anything. It was instant. I don't remember the rest of that conversation. I don't remember packing a bag, calling my office, booking a flight. The next thing I knew, I was on a plane to Asheville, staring out the window at clouds, feeling absolutely nothing. Numb. Empty. Like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me human. My twin sister was dead. My other half. The person I'd known longer than anyone else on earth. Gone. Just gone. The funeral was 3 days later. I arrived in Asheville the day before, checked into a hotel because I couldn't stomach the idea of staying at Marcus's house, and went straight to the funeral home for the viewing. That's when everything started to unravel. I walked into that sterile room with its pale blue walls and overwhelming smell of lilies, and I saw the casket. Closed. The funeral director, a nervous man in his 50s, explained that it was Marcus's wishes. He felt an open casket would be too distressing for everyone. I need to see her, I said. Ms. Cole, I understand, but Mr. Reid was very specific. I'm her identical twin sister. I'm her next of kin. Same as he is. Open the casket. Something in my voice, that cold courtroom voice I use when I'm about to destroy a defendant's alibi, made him step back. He opened the casket, and I looked at my sister's face for the last time. She looked like she was sleeping, peaceful, like Marcus had said. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled beautifully. She was wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before, something expensive and elegant. Her hands were folded across her stomach, holding a single white lily. I stood there for a long time, just looking at her, memorizing every detail. And that's when I saw it. On her left wrist, barely visible beneath the sleeve of her dress, was a bruise. Not a recent one. An old one, faded to a sickly yellow-green. And on her neck, just below her jawline, carefully concealed by makeup, were more bruises. Faint, but unmistakable. Finger-shaped bruises. My blood ran cold. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. The funeral director tried to stop me, but I gave him a look that made him back away. I documented everything. The bruises on her wrist, the ones on her neck, the strange positioning of her hands, too stiff, too arranged. And then I saw her fingernails. Short, which was wrong, because Melissa always kept them long. And beneath the polish, the nail beds looked damaged, torn, like she'd been clawing at something. Or someone. This wasn't a woman who'd died peacefully in her sleep. This was a woman who'd fought. This was a woman who'd been hurt. This was a woman who'd been murdered. I stood at that funeral the next day, watching Marcus play his role. He wore a custom black suit, probably cost $3,000. He delivered a eulogy that had people sobbing into their tissues. He talked about how much he loved Melissa, how she was his everything, how he'd never love anyone the way he loved her. He even broke down crying at the graveside, had to be supported by his mother and his business partner. I watched it all with dead eyes, watched him throw dirt on her casket, watched him accept condolences from neighbors and friends and colleagues. Watched him hug Melissa's students, little kids who'd loved their music teacher, who didn't understand why she was never coming back. And I watched his mother, Patricia Reid, elegant, cold, standing beside her son like a guard dog. She looked at me once during the service, and I saw something flicker in her eyes, recognition maybe, or calculation. She knew who I was. She knew I was Melissa's twin. And the way she looked at me, like I was a threat to be eliminated, told me she knew something, maybe everything. After the funeral, Marcus invited everyone back to the house for a reception. I went. I needed to see where my sister had lived, where she'd died. The house was massive, a colonial-style mansion in one of Asheville's wealthiest neighborhoods. Perfectly manicured lawn, 3-car garage, swimming pool in the back. This was the dream life Marcus had promised Melissa. From the outside, it looked perfect. But I've learned that the most beautiful houses often hide the ugliest secrets. I walked through that house cataloging everything. The expensive furniture, the art on the walls, the grand piano in the living room that Melissa must have loved. But I also noticed other things. The total absence of Melissa's personal touches. No photographs of her childhood, her friends, her family. Just wedding photos and pictures of Marcus at various business events. Her piano had a thin layer of dust on it, like it hadn't been played in months. And in the kitchen, tucked behind the coffee maker, I found a bottle of prescription medication. Ambien. Prescribed to Melissa Reid, filled 2 weeks ago. The bottle was empty. I pocketed the bottle. Evidence. Always. Building evidence. Marcus found me in the kitchen. "Miranda, thank you for coming. I know how hard this must be for you. You two were so close." I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was handsome in that generic way successful men often are. Good hair, good teeth, expensive clothes. But his eyes were dead. Flat. Like looking into the eyes of a shark. "We were twins, Marcus. We weren't just close. We were each other." Something flickered across his face. Just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by that mask of grief. "I know. I can't imagine what you're feeling. Losing your sister. I lost my wife, but you lost your twin, your other half." The way he said it with such false sympathy made me want to put my fist through his perfect teeth, but I just nodded. "Tell me what happened that night. The night she died." Marcus sighed, running his hand through his hair. "We had dinner, watched some TV. Melissa said she was tired, so we went to bed around 10. I woke up around 6, and she was just not breathing. I called 911 immediately, but it was too late. They said it was a brain aneurysm. Sudden, unpredictable, nothing anyone could have done." "Did she complain of headaches? Any warning signs?" "No, nothing. She seemed completely fine. That's what makes this so devastating. One moment she was here, and the next..." He trailed off, shaking his head. I wanted to ask about the bruises, the empty Ambien bottle, the damaged fingernails, but I held back. I needed more information first. I needed a plan. "Can I see her room? Our room, I mean, where she slept?" Marcus hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. "Of course, it's upstairs. Second door on the right." I climbed those stairs, feeling his eyes on me the entire time. The master bedroom was enormous, with a king-sized bed, walk-in closets, and a balcony overlooking the pool. Everything was pristine. Too pristine. Like a hotel room, not a space where someone had lived. I checked the bathroom. Her toiletries were still there, but organized with military precision. I opened her closet, designer clothes all perfectly arranged by color and season. But I noticed something. The clothes were all conservative. High necklines, long sleeves, modest cuts. Nothing like what Melissa used to wear. On the nightstand, on what must have been her side of the bed, there was a single book. A devotional, something about being a godly wife. Inside the front cover, I found a note in Melissa's handwriting. "Remember your place. Honor your husband. Obey without question." My hands started shaking. This wasn't Melissa. This was someone who'd been broken down, reprogrammed, turned into something she wasn't. I took pictures of everything. The book, the note, the too empty closet. Then I went into Marcus's closet. What I found there changed everything. Hidden in a shoebox at the back of the top shelf, I found a burner phone. I turned it on. No password. And on that phone, I found text. Messages. Hundreds of them. Between Marcus and someone named V, the messages went back 2 years. They were explicit, sexual, planning meetups at hotels. And they were recent. The last message was from 2 days before Melissa died. "Can't wait until this is over. Can't wait until I can be with you openly. Soon, baby, very soon." I felt ice in my veins. Marcus had been having an affair, and based on the timing of these messages, he'd been planning something. Planning to be with this person openly, which meant planning to be free of Melissa. I took the phone, slipped it into my purse before anyone could see. This was evidence. This was motive. This was murder. I went back downstairs, my mind racing. I needed to leave before I did something stupid. Before I confronted Marcus in front of everyone and destroyed any chance of getting justice for Melissa. I found him in the living room, accepting condolences from a group of neighbors. When he saw me, he excused himself and walked over. "Did you find everything you needed?" he asked. That smile again. That dead-eyed shark smile. "Yes, thank you. I should go. It's been a long day." "Of course. Miranda, I want you to know you're always welcome here. Your family. Melissa would have wanted you to feel at home here." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I left that house, got in my rental car, and drove. I didn't go back to my hotel. I drove to the police station. The detective who handled Melissa's case was a woman in her 40s, Detective Sarah Chen. I showed her my ID, told her I was Melissa's twin, and said I had concerns about my sister's death. She listened politely, took notes, but I could see the skepticism in her eyes. "Ms. Cole, I understand you're grieving, but the medical examiner ruled this a natural death. Brain aneurysm. It happens." Did the ME examine her for signs of trauma? Bruising? Defensive wounds? Detective Chen frowned. The husband requested a minimal examination. He was very distraught, didn't want his wife's body further violated. The ME saw no obvious signs of foul play, so he honored that request. She had bruises on her wrists and neck. I saw them at the viewing. That could be from the paramedics, from attempts to revive her. "Ms. Cole, I know this is hard, but sometimes we have to accept that bad things happen to good people for no reason." I pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures I'd taken. The bruises, the fingernails. "Does that look like paramedic damage to you?" Detective Chen's expression changed. She studied the photos more carefully. "These were taken at the funeral home?" "Yes, and there's more." I told her about the empty Ambien bottle, the burner phone, the affair. I told her everything. When I finished, Detective Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Ms. Cole, what you're suggesting is very serious. Accusing someone of murder, especially when the death has already been ruled natural, requires substantial evidence. These pictures, this phone, they're concerning, but they're not enough. Not yet. Then what do I need?" She looked at me for a long time. "Honestly, a confession, or concrete physical evidence that proves foul play. Without one of those, it's your suspicions against a medical examiner's ruling and a grieving husband's testimony." I left that police station knowing what I had to do. If the system wouldn't give me justice, I'd get it myself. And I had one advantage no one else had. I looked exactly like my sister. I sounded exactly like her. I knew her well enough to become her. And Marcus Reid had no idea what was about to hit him. I spent the next week preparing. I studied Melissa's life obsessively. I went through her social media, read every post, every comment. I tracked down her friends and colleagues, interviewed them under the guise of gathering memories for a memorial. I learned about her daily routines, her favorite foods, her habits. I dyed my hair to match hers exactly, styled it the same way. I practiced her mannerisms, her walk, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking. I became my sister, and then I made my move. I waited until exactly 3 days after the funeral. The house would be empty, Marcus back at work, trying to maintain normalcy. I used the spare key I'd stolen from the kitchen hook during the reception. I let myself into the house at 2 p.m, put on one of Melissa's dresses from the closet, and waited in the kitchen. I heard his car pull into the garage at 5:47 p.m. The door from the garage to the kitchen opened. Marcus walked in, loosening his tie, checking his phone, and then he looked up and saw me standing by the sink, wearing his dead wife's clothes, with his dead wife's face. The color drained from his face, his phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. He made a sound, something between a gasp and a scream, and stumbled backward into the doorframe. "Hello, Marcus," I said, using Melissa's voice, Melissa's gentle tone. "Did you miss me?" He couldn't speak, just stared at me with absolute terror in his eyes. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. This wasn't the reaction of a man seeing his wife's twin sister. This was the reaction of a man seeing a ghost he thought he'd successfully buried. I took a step toward him. He pressed himself back against the door. "What's wrong, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." You can't be." His voice was barely a whisper. "Can't be what? Alive?" I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. But I am alive, Marcus. I'm standing right here. He was shaking now, full body tremors. Miranda? You're Miranda. You have to be. Do I? I walked closer, close enough to touch him. Are you sure about that? That's when something changed in his eyes. The terror shifted to calculation. He was trying to figure out if I was Melissa or Miranda, trying to determine which twin was standing in his kitchen. And I could see the exact moment he decided I must be Miranda, because the fear started to fade, replaced by anger. What the hell are you doing here? What kind of sick game is this? I dropped the act. Let my voice return to normal, harder, colder. The kind where I find out what really happened to my sister. Your sister died of an aneurysm. You were at the funeral. I saw bruises on her wrists and neck. I saw damaged fingernails. I found an empty bottle of Ambien. And I found your burner phone, Marcus. I know about V. I know about the affair. I know you were planning to leave Melissa. Except you didn't leave her. You killed her. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're insane. You're grief-stricken, and you're not thinking clearly. Those bruises were from the paramedics. The Ambien was prescribed by her doctor for insomnia, and that phone isn't mine. I've never seen it before. Really? Then you won't mind if I turn it over to the police. His jaw tightened. That phone was in my closet. You broke into my house, went through my things, and stole my property. That's illegal. Any evidence on it would be inadmissible. He was right. I'd stolen the phone illegally. But I smiled anyway. Maybe, but it's still enough to get the police to take a closer look at Melissa's death. Enough to get them to exhume her body, do a full autopsy, toxicology screening. Enough to make your life very uncomfortable. Marcus stepped forward, and I saw it then. The real Marcus, the one Melissa must have seen in those final moments, his face twisted with rage, his hands clenching into fists. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know who I am or what I'm capable of. I know you're a murderer. He moved fast, faster than I expected. His hand wrapped around my throat and slammed me back against the kitchen counter. His face was inches from mine, his breath hot and sour. Your sister was weak. She was pathetic. She cried all the time, questioned everything, couldn't do anything right. I gave her everything. This house, money, status, and she repaid me by being a disappointment. I couldn't breathe. His grip was crushing my windpipe. My vision started to blur at the edges, but I didn't fight back. Not yet, because I needed him to keep talking. I needed a confession. She found out about Vanessa, Marcus continued, his voice a low snarl. Found text messages on my phone. She threatened to leave me, to ruin my reputation, to take half of everything. So I did what I had to do. I crushed up Ambien in her wine, waited for her to fall asleep, and I held a pillow over her face until she stopped breathing. It took longer than I thought. She fought. God, she fought so hard, but she was weak and I was stronger. My lungs were screaming for air. Black spots danced across my vision. But I smiled. Because hidden in the pocket of Melissa's dress was my phone, recording everything, every word, every confession. I had him. That's when the front door burst open. Detective Chen and 2 uniformed officers rushed in. Police, let her go! Marcus released me and I collapsed to the floor, gasping, coughing, my throat on fire. The officers grabbed Marcus, forced him to the ground, cuffed him. He was screaming, fighting, cursing. But it was over. It was finally over. Detective Chen knelt beside me. Are you okay? Can you breathe? I nodded, unable to speak. She helped me sit up, and I pulled my phone from my pocket, handed it to her. She pressed play, and Marcus's voice filled the kitchen. His confession, all of it. Detective Chen looked at me with something like respect. You knew he'd confess if he thought you were Melissa. I found my voice, hoarse and broken. He's arrogant. He needed to tell someone how clever he was, how he got away with it. You took a hell of a risk. He could have killed you. I know. But she was my sister, my twin, my other half, and I owed her justice. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The trial took 6 months. In that time, I learned everything about what Marcus had done to Melissa. The police exhumed her body, did a full autopsy. They found petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes consistent with suffocation. They found high levels of Ambien in her system, far more than a therapeutic dose. They found evidence of long-term physical abuse, healed fractures in her ribs, scar tissue on her scalp from having her hair pulled. My sister had been living in hell and I hadn't known. I hadn't been there. The investigation also revealed the identity of Vanessa Hartley, Marcus's business partner's wife. She was 32, blonde, ambitious. She and Marcus had been having an affair for 2 years. They'd been planning to run away together, start a new life. But Marcus needed money, and half of everything he owned was technically Melissa's. A divorce would have cost him. Murder was cheaper. Vanessa turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity. She testified that Marcus had told her he was going to handle his wife problem. She claimed she didn't know he meant murder, but she'd helped him plan the aftermath, coached him on how to act like a grieving widower, helped him dispose of evidence. Marcus's mother, Patricia, was also investigated. Turns out she knew about the affair, approved of it even. She'd never thought Melissa was good enough for her son. Thought she was too common, too simple. Patricia had actively helped isolate Melissa, cut her off from friends and family, control every aspect of her life. She was charged as an accessory after the fact. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession I'd recorded, the forensic evidence from the autopsy, Vanessa's testimony, financial records showing Marcus had taken out $1 million life insurance policy on Melissa 6 months before her death. Text messages between Marcus and Vanessa discussing their future together once Melissa was out of the way. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching Marcus try to maintain his innocent facade. He wore expensive suits, looked humble and devastated, claimed I'd entrapped him, that his confession had been coerced. His lawyers tried to get the recording thrown out, claimed it was obtained illegally, but the judge ruled it admissible. I'd been in fear for my life. Marcus had attacked me. The recording was self-defense documentation. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, fraud, assault. The courtroom erupted. Marcus's mother screamed. Vanessa, sitting in the back, put her head in her hands. And I just sat there, feeling nothing. Empty. Because Melissa was still gone. The verdict didn't bring her back. At sentencing, the judge looked at Marcus with disgust. You murdered your wife in cold blood. You suffocated the woman who loved you, who trusted you, who built a life with you. And you did it for money and another woman. You are a coward and a monster. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Marcus was led away in chains. He looked at me as they took him out, and there was nothing in his eyes anymore. No rage, no calculation, just emptiness. He was a dead man walking, and he knew it. Patricia Reid was sentenced to 5 years as an accessory. Vanessa Hartley, despite her immunity deal, had her life destroyed. Her husband divorced her, took their kids, got a restraining order. She lost her job, her house, her reputation. The last I heard, she was living with her sister in Florida, working as a cashier at a grocery store. Sometimes the punishment isn't prison. Sometimes it's having to live with what you've done. After the trial, I had to deal with Melissa's estate. As her twin and next of kin, everything came to me. The house Marcus had bought with dirty money. His business, which was failing because his partner wanted nothing to do with a murderer's assets. Bank accounts, investments, the life insurance policy, all of it. Millions of dollars. Money that should have been Melissa's that Marcus had planned to steal. I sold everything. The house, the business, all of it. I donated a significant portion to domestic violence charities, organizations that help women escape abusive marriages. The rest I used to set up the Miranda Cole Foundation, a nonprofit that provides legal assistance and financial support to women trying to leave dangerous relationships. Because Melissa couldn't escape. But maybe I could help other women escape before it was too late. I went back to Chicago, back to my job, back to my life. But I wasn't the same person. How could I be? I'd lost my twin, my other half, and I'd become her to catch her killer. Parts of Melissa were still inside me, woven into my DNA. I'd learned what she went through, felt what she felt, lived in her skin for those terrifying moments in that kitchen. Sometimes I dream about that day. I dream that I'm standing in Marcus's kitchen, wearing Melissa's dress. And when he walks in, it's not me he sees, it's her. And in the dream, she's not afraid. She's fierce, she's angry. She fights back the way she couldn't in real life, and she wins. But then I wake up, and I remember that Melissa is gone, that her grave is in Asheville, in the cemetery where we used to play as kids. I visit her every year on our birthday, bring her flowers, sit on the grass beside her headstone, and tell her about my life, about the foundation, the women we've helped, the lives we've saved in her name, and I tell her I'm sorry. Sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I didn't see the warning signs. Sorry I let my career, my busy life, My own problems keep me from being the sister she needed. Sorry I didn't save her. But I also tell her that I got him, that I made sure he would never hurt anyone again, that I used the one gift we had, our identical faces, to bring him to justice. And I like to think that wherever she is, she knows. She knows I didn't let her down in the end. I didn't let her murderer go free. To everyone watching this, if you're in a relationship where you feel controlled, isolated, afraid, please listen to me. Melissa stayed because she was ashamed. She stayed because she'd been convinced she was worthless, that she deserved the abuse, that no one would believe her. She stayed because leaving seemed impossible, and staying killed her. You are not worthless. You are not crazy. You are not imagining things, and you can leave. There are resources, hotlines, shelters, legal advocates who will help you. You don't have to die to escape. You don't have to become a statistic. Please reach out. Please save yourself. Because someone loves you. Someone would go to war for you the way I went to war for Melissa. You matter. Your life matters. To the abusers watching this, know that you don't always get away with it. Know that there are people like me, people who won't stop, who won't give up, who will hunt you down and make sure you face justice. Know that the people you hurt have friends, family, sisters who will fight for them. Know that your time is coming. Marcus Reid sits in a maximum security prison right now. He'll be there for the rest of his life. He'll never feel the sun on his face without bars between them. He'll never know freedom again. He killed the wrong woman. He underestimated the power of a sister's love. He didn't realize that when you murder someone's twin, you're not just killing one person, you're destroying 2 lives, and the one left behind will dedicate everything to making sure you pay. I switched places with my identical twin after she died. When her husband saw me, he went pale because he knew I was coming for him. And I did. I destroyed him. I took everything from him the way he took everything from Melissa, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. My name is Miranda Cole. I'm a forensic accountant, a sister, and a woman who refused to let a murderer win. Melissa deserved better than the life Marcus gave her. She deserved better than the death he dealt her. And even though I can't bring her back, I made damn sure he never forgets her name, that he spends every day for the rest of his miserable life knowing that justice caught up with him. Because of a sister who looked exactly like the woman he killed. Because I became her ghost, and I haunted him straight into a prison cell. 3 years have passed since Marcus Reid was sentenced to life in prison. 3 years since I watched him being led away in chains, his mother screaming in the courtroom, Vanessa Hartley sobbing in the back row. 3 years since I buried my sister for the second time, properly this time, with a headstone that told the truth about who she was and how she died. People ask me if I've moved on, if I've found peace. The answer is complicated. Because you don't just move on from losing your twin, your other half, the person who knew you before you knew yourself. You don't find peace after discovering she was murdered by the man who promised to love her. You learn to live with it. You learn to channel the rage and the grief into something that matters. You learn to make her death mean something. The Melissa Cole Foundation has grown beyond anything I imagined. We've helped over 200 women escape abusive relationships in the past 3 years. We provide legal representation, financial assistance, temporary housing, job placement, therapy, everything a woman needs to build a new life away from the monster who's been destroying her. Every woman we save feels like a small piece of redemption, like I'm saving Melissa over and over again, in different bodies, different faces, different names. But there's still one piece of unfinished business. One person who helped destroy my sister and got away with it. One person who orchestrated so much of Melissa's suffering and then disappeared into the shadows when everything came crashing down. Patricia Reid, Marcus's mother. She served 3 years of her 5-year sentence and got out early for good behavior. 3 years. That's all the justice system thought my sister's life was worth when it came to her mother-in-law. I've been tracking Patricia since her release 6 months ago. Old habits die hard, and I'm very good at following money trails. She moved to Charleston, South Carolina, using money she'd hidden in offshore accounts that the prosecutors never found. She bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, changed her name to Patricia Reynolds, and tried to start over. Tried to pretend she wasn't an accomplice to murder. Tried to pretend she hadn't spent years psychologically torturing her daughter-in-law. But I found her. Because I'm better at hiding money than she is at finding it, and I'm certainly better at tracking it down. It's a warm October morning when I knock on her door. I'm wearing a simple black dress, my hair pulled back, my face carefully made up. I look professional, unthreatening, just a woman with business to discuss. Patricia opens the door and I watch the color drain from her face. Hello, Patricia. Or should I call you Reynolds now? She tries to slam the door. I put my foot in the doorway, my hand against the wood. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk. I have a restraining order against you, she hisses. Her voice is the same, that cold, imperious tone that Melissa must have heard every day. But now there's fear underneath it. Good. No, you have a restraining order against Miranda Cole. I'm not here as Miranda, I'm here as Melissa. I smile, and it's my sister's smile. Gentle, trusting, the smile of a woman who believed in the goodness of people. Patricia's hand trembles on the doorknob. You're insane! You're completely insane. Maybe, but I'm also the reason your son is in prison for the rest of his life. I'm the reason your comfortable life was destroyed. I'm the reason everyone in Asheville knows exactly what kind of woman you are. And I'm here because we have unfinished business. She stares at me for a long moment, calculating. Then she steps back, opens the door wider. 5 minutes, then you leave, or I call the police. I walk into her small, neat house. It's nothing like the mansion in Asheville, but it's comfortable. Probably cost her $300,000, pocket change from what she stole from Marcus's business before the police froze his assets. The living room is tastefully decorated, all neutrals and careful restraint. But there are no family photos, no pictures of Marcus as a child, no memories of happier times. Because Patricia Reid knows that her son is a murderer, and she helped create him. What do you want? She stands by the door, arms crossed, defensively. She's aged since the trial. Her hair is completely gray now, her face lined with bitterness and fear. I want you to tell me the truth, all of it, everything you did to Melissa. I didn't do anything to your sister. Marcus killed her. He's paying for it. I was barely involved. I laugh, and it's not a pleasant sound. You were barely involved. You isolated her. You criticized everything she did. You made her feel worthless. You knew Marcus was beating her and you encouraged it. You knew about the affair with Vanessa and you approved. You helped him plan how to get away with murder. Barely involved. Patricia's jaw tightens. Your sister was weak. She wasn't suitable for my son. She didn't understand what it meant to be part of our family, to maintain our standards. Your standards? Your son was a car dealer, Patricia. Not a Kennedy, not a Rockefeller. He sold overpriced vehicles to people who couldn't afford them. That was his great legacy. He was successful. He was respected. And your sister dragged him down with her constant neediness, her crying, her pathetic attempts to please everyone. She was embarrassing. I feel the rage building in my chest, hot and sharp. She was a music teacher. She helped children discover joy and creativity. She was kind and gentle and good. Everything your son wasn't. She was weak, Patricia snaps. And weakness has no place in this world. I tried to make her stronger. I tried to teach her how to be a proper wife. But she couldn't learn. She couldn't adapt. So nature took its course. Nature. She's calling murder nature. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. You knew Marcus was going to kill her. I knew he was unhappy. I knew Vanessa made him happy. I knew Melissa was in the way. Did you help him plan it? The Ambien in her wine, the pillow over her face while she slept? Patricia looks away. I told him to be careful. I told him to make sure it looked natural. I told him about aneurysms, how they're unpredictable, how they happen to young, healthy people. I may have suggested that if Melissa were to die suddenly, it would solve all his problems. There it is. The confession, the admission that she wasn't just an accessory after the fact. She was part of the planning. She was part of the murder. And I'm recording every word on the device hidden in my purse. Why didn't you testify to this at trial? I asked quietly. Because I'm not stupid. I took a plea deal, 3 years for accessory charges, and I kept my mouth shut about the planning. Marcus's lawyers advised it. Better for me to look like an unwitting accomplice than a co-conspirator. So you let your son take the fall alone? Patricia's face hardens. My son made his own choices. I tried to protect him, tried to teach him how to be smart about it. But he was sloppy. He left evidence everywhere. That burner phone, the insurance policy, the text messages. He was careless. He was arrogant, like you, perhaps. But I'm free and he's not. So which one of us was smarter? I want to hit her. I want to wrap my hands around her throat, the way Marcus wrapped his around mine in that kitchen 3 years ago. But violence won't bring Melissa back. Violence won't give her justice. Only the truth can do that. You know what I find interesting, Patricia? You stole money. A lot of money. From Marcus's business accounts, from shell companies you set up in the Cayman Islands, from investment accounts you thought were untraceable. You thought you were so clever. Her face goes pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. See, I'm a forensic accountant. It's literally my job to find hidden money, and I'm very, very good at it. I found every account, every transfer, every dollar you stole. $6.3 million to be exact. Money you embezzled from Marcus's business over 5 years. Money you've been living on since your release. Patricia sits down heavily on her couch. You can't prove any of that. I pull a folder from my bag, the same way I did 3 years ago in Marcus's mansion. Bank statements, wire transfer records, shell company formation documents with your forged signatures, tax evasion evidence, and emails. Patricia? Emails to your accountant discussing how to hide assets from the IRS. I can prove all of it. She stares at the folder like it's a snake about to strike. What do you want? I want you to confess, officially, on record. I want you to admit that you helped Marcus plan Melissa's murder, that you coached him on how to make it look natural, that you knew he was going to kill her and you helped him do it. I'll go to prison, real prison this time, 20 years, maybe more. Yes, you will. Patricia looks at me with pure hatred. And if I don't, then I turn all of this financial evidence over to the IRS and the FBI. They'll freeze your accounts, seize your house, charge you with tax evasion, wire fraud, embezzlement. You'll spend the rest of your life in legal battles and bankruptcy. And eventually they'll find the same evidence I found about the murder planning. But it'll take them longer, and by then, you'll have lost everything anyway. So either way, I lose. Either way, you pay for what you did to my sister. The only question is whether you have enough dignity left to tell the truth. We sit in silence for a long moment. I can see her calculating, weighing her options, trying to find a way out. But there isn't one. I've made sure of that. I've spent 3 years building this case, following every financial thread, documenting every crime. Patricia Reid is out of moves. Fine, she says finally, her voice bitter. I'll confess. But I want immunity on the financial crimes. No immunity. You confess to everything, the murder planning and the embezzlement. You take full responsibility. In exchange, I'll recommend concurrent sentencing. You'll serve 1 sentence for everything instead of consecutive sentences that would keep you in prison until you die. Patricia closes her eyes. When she opens them, they're wet with tears. But I don't feel sympathy. I feel nothing. You're just like him, you know. Just like Marcus. Cold, calculating, ruthless. No, I say quietly. I'm like Melissa. I fight for the people I love. I don't let monsters win, and I make sure justice is served, no matter how long it takes. 2 weeks later, Patricia Reid walks into the Charleston Police Department with her lawyer and confesses to conspiracy to commit murder. She tells them everything. How she encouraged Marcus's affair with Vanessa. How she suggested that Melissa's death would solve all his problems. How she researched untraceable poisons and suggested the ambient and suffocation method. How she helped him rehearse his grief, coached him on what to say to the paramedics, told him to request a minimal autopsy. She also confesses to the embezzlement, the tax evasion, the wire fraud, all of it. The recording I made of our conversation is submitted as evidence. My financial documents corroborate every claim. There's no wiggle room, no possibility of escape. The prosecutor calls me after Patricia's confession. Ms. Cole, I have to say, I'm impressed. You built a better case than we did 3 years ago. I had time, and I had motivation. She's agreed to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for concurrent sentencing. She'll get 20 to 25 years. With her age, that's essentially a life sentence. Good. That's what she deserves. But there's more. Patricia's confession triggers a review of Marcus's case, because if Patricia helped plan the murder, that makes her a co-conspirator, not just an accessory. Which means Marcus's sentence could potentially be enhanced. Not that it matters much when you're already serving life without parole, but symbolically, it matters. It means the truth is finally, completely on the record. The hearing takes place on what would have been Melissa's 42nd birthday. I sit in the courtroom, watching Patricia in her orange jumpsuit, looking small and defeated. Marcus is brought in via video conference from prison. He looks terrible, gray, thin, older than his 45 years. Prison hasn't been kind to him. The judge reviews the new evidence, Patricia's confession, the conspiracy charges. Then he looks at both of them, his face grave. Mr. Reid, Mrs. Reid, you conspired together to murder an innocent woman. You planned it, executed it, and tried to cover it up. You destroyed a family. You traumatized a community. And you've shown absolutely no remorse. He pauses, letting the words sink in. Mr. Reid, your sentence stands. Life without parole. But I'm adding a conspiracy charge. You and your mother will be forever linked in the record books as co-conspirators in the murder of Melissa Cole. Mrs. Reid, I sentence you to 25 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder, to run concurrently with your sentences for embezzlement and fraud. You'll be eligible for parole when you're 87 years old. Patricia doesn't react, just stares straight ahead, her face blank. Marcus, on the video screen, closes his eyes, and I feel something in my chest finally release. It's not quite peace, but it's close. After the hearing, I drive to Asheville, to the cemetery where Melissa is buried. Her headstone is simple, elegant. Melissa Ann Cole, beloved sister, teacher, friend. Taken too soon, forever missed. I bring flowers, pink roses, her favorite, and I sit on the grass beside her grave, the way I always do, and I talk to her. It's done, Mel. It's finally done, Patricia confessed. She's going to prison for the rest of her life. Marcus will die in prison. Vanessa lost everything. Everyone who hurt you, everyone who helped destroy you, they've all paid. I made sure of it. The wind rustles through the trees, and I imagine it's Melissa, telling me she knows. She's grateful. She's proud. The foundation is doing amazing work. We're saving lives every day. Women who were trapped, like you were, they're getting out. They're rebuilding. They're surviving. You're saving them, Mel. Through me, through the foundation, you're still saving people. I trace her name on the headstone with my finger. I miss you every day. I miss your laugh, your terrible puns, the way you hummed while you cooked. I miss having someone who understood me without words. I miss my twin. Tears run down my face, hot and bitter. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I was too busy, too distant, too wrapped up in my own life. I failed you when you needed me most. But I didn't fail you in the end. I got them. I got all of them. And I'll keep getting them. Every abuser, every monster who thinks they can hurt women and get away with it. That's my promise to you. I stay there for a long time, just sitting with her, feeling the sun on my face, listening to the birds sing. And slowly, gradually, I feel something shift inside me. The rage that's been burning in my chest for 3 years starts to cool. Not disappear, never disappear, but transform into something else, something sustainable, something that can fuel the work I do without consuming me. I think about what Patricia said, that I'm like Marcus, cold and calculating and ruthless. She's wrong. I'm nothing like Marcus. Marcus destroyed for selfish reasons, for money and lust and convenience. I destroy to protect. I'm ruthless with abusers because they've forfeited their right to mercy. I'm cold with predators because warmth is wasted on people who have none to give. I'm calculating because that's how you win against people who've spent years learning how to manipulate the system. I'm not a monster. I'm a weapon. And I'm pointed at the right targets. 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, I get a call from a woman named Sarah. She found the Melissa Cole Foundation through our website. She's been married for 7 years, has 2 small children, and her husband has been beating her for the past 5. She's terrified to leave. He's threatened to kill her if she tries. He's told her she'll never see her kids again. He's convinced her that no one will believe her, that she has no options, that she's trapped. I listen to her story, and I hear Melissa in every word. The fear, the shame, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, someone will help. Sarah, I say gently, you called the right place. We're going to get you out. We're going to keep you safe. And we're going to make sure your husband faces consequences for what he's done. How? Her voice is barely a whisper. How can you possibly help me? Because I've done this before. Because I know how abusers work. Because I have resources, lawyers, safe houses, investigators. Because I don't give up. And because my sister died so that I could save you. We work quickly. Within 72 hours, Sarah and her children are in a safe house 3 states away. Her husband comes home to an empty house and a restraining order. He's arrested 2 days later on assault charges after we provide the police with medical records, photographs, and recorded threats. He's currently awaiting trial, and Sarah is filing for divorce and full custody. She calls me a month later. Miranda, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life. You saved my children's lives. Thank Melissa, I tell her. She's the one who made this possible. Stories like Sarah's are why I do this, why I get up every morning and go to war against abusers, why I use my skills, my resources, my experience to burn down the lives of men who think they can hurt women without consequences. Every woman we save is Melissa saved. Every child we protect is the child Melissa and Marcus never got to have. Every abuser we put behind bars is Marcus Reid getting sentenced again and again and again. The foundation has expanded. We have offices in 12 states now. We've helped over 500 women escape abusive relationships. We've put dozens of abusers in prison. We've recovered millions of dollars in stolen assets and redirected it to victims. We've changed laws, influenced policy, trained police departments on how to handle domestic violence cases. We've become a force, a movement, an army of survivors and advocates and professionals who refuse to let abusers win, and I'm at the center of it, driving it forward, fueled by the memory of my sister and the promise I made to her. I will never stop. I will never quit. I will fight until my last breath to make sure no woman dies the way Melissa died, alone and afraid and convinced she had no way out. I still visit Marcus in prison once a year, not because I want to, but because I need him to remember, need him to see my face, Melissa's face, and know that he didn't win, that he destroyed his own life, his mother's life, Vanessa's life, and accomplished nothing. Melissa's legacy is the hundreds of women who are alive because of the foundation. His legacy is a prison cell and a name synonymous with cowardice and cruelty. Last month, I sat across from him in the visiting room, separated by plexiglass, and I told him about Patricia's confession, about how his mother sold him out to save herself, then still ended up in prison anyway, about how every single person he loved or trusted or depended on had abandoned him, about how he would die alone in a cell, unmourned and unforgiven. He didn't say anything, just stared at me with empty eyes. The arrogance is gone, the rage is gone, there's nothing left. He's a shell, a ghost, already dead in every way that matters. And I realized, looking at him, that I don't hate him anymore. I don't feel anything for him. He's irrelevant, he's finished, he's less than nothing. I walked out of that prison and felt lighter than I have in years because I finally understood something important. Marcus didn't take Melissa from me. He took Melissa's life, her future, her chance to grow old and be happy. But he didn't take her from me. She's still with me every day. In the work I do, in the women I save, in the moments when I choose compassion over cruelty and justice over revenge. She's in my DNA, in my heart, in every decision I make. We're still twins. Death doesn't change that. I'm writing this story 5 years after Melissa died. 5 years after I became her to catch her killer. 5 years of building something beautiful from something horrible. The Miranda Cole Foundation has helped over 1,000 women now. 1,000 lives saved, 1,000 families protected, 1,000 futures that exist because I refuse to let my sister's death be meaningless. People sometimes ask me if I've found love again, if I've moved on, if I've started dating. The answer is complicated. How do you date when your identical twin was murdered by her husband? How do you trust someone with your heart when you've seen what men are capable of? I've had a few relationships, brief and unsatisfying. They end when I wake up screaming from nightmares about finding Melissa's body, or when I'm too focused on the foundation to remember we had plans, or when they realize I'm never going to be the soft, gentle, uncomplicated woman they want me to be. I've made peace with that. I don't need a romantic relationship to be complete. I have purpose, I have meaning, I have work that matters, and I have Melissa, still guiding me, still inspiring me, still with me in every way that counts. Last week, I received a letter from a woman named Jennifer. She'd escaped her abusive husband 15 years ago with the help of a small domestic violence shelter in Ohio. She'd rebuilt her life, gotten her degree, become a therapist, specializing in trauma. She'd raised her 2 daughters as a single mother, and both of them had just graduated college. She wrote to me because she'd heard about the Miranda Cole Foundation and wanted me to know that women like her, women who'd escaped and survived and thrived, were proof that the work matters, that every dollar donated, every hour volunteered, every woman saved creates ripples that spread across decades and generations. Your sister's death was a tragedy, she wrote, but the life you've built from that tragedy is a miracle. Thank you for fighting for us. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for turning your pain into purpose. I cried when I read that letter. Not sad tears, but something else. Tears of release, maybe, or recognition. Because Jennifer was right. Melissa's death was a tragedy, but it doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning, the catalyst, the reason I became the person I am today. I'm not the woman I was before Melissa died. That Miranda was focused on her career, on building her reputation, on winning cases and making money. She was successful, but she was hollow. She'd sacrificed relationships for advancement, love for achievement. She was lonely without knowing it, lost without realizing it. The Miranda I am now is different, harder in some ways, softer in others. I've seen the worst of humanity, the capacity for cruelty that lurks in ordinary people. But I've also seen the best, the courage of women who escape impossible situations, the compassion of advocates who give everything to help strangers, the resilience of children who survive trauma and still find joy. I've learned that justice isn't always found in courtrooms. Sometimes it's found in a safe house, at 3 a.m, holding a terrified woman's hand while she makes the hardest decision of her life. Sometimes it's found in a support group where survivors share their stories and realize they're not alone. Sometimes it's found in legislation that makes it harder for abusers to win custody, easier for victims to get restraining orders, possible for women to escape without losing everything. Marcus Reid is in prison. Patricia Reed is in prison. Vanessa Hartley's life is destroyed. But that's not where the story ends. The story ends with 1,000 women who are alive and free because my sister died. The story ends with children who grew up without witnessing violence because we got their mothers out. The story ends with a movement, a foundation, a legacy that will outlive me and Marcus and everyone involved in this tragedy. That's Melissa's real memorial, not the headstone in Asheville, though I still visit it every year, not the trial that put her killers away, though that mattered too. Her real memorial is every woman who escapes, every child who grows up safe, every abuser who goes to prison, every life that continues because we fought for it. I switched places with my identical twin after she died. When her husband saw me, he went pale because he knew his crimes would be exposed, and I did expose them. I tore apart his life, destroyed everyone who helped him, and built something beautiful from the ashes of my sister's murder. 5 years later, I'm still fighting, still saving women, still honoring Melissa's memory by making sure her death meant something. And I'll keep fighting until my last breath, because that's what twins do. We fight for each other, even across the barrier of death, even when it costs everything, even when it takes years. Marcus took Melissa's life, but I took his freedom, his mother's freedom, his lover's future, and his legacy. And in return, I gave Melissa something he could never destroy: immortality through purpose, eternal life through the women she saves, resurrection through justice. My name is Miranda Cole. I'm 43 years old, and I'm my sister's vengeance, her voice, her victory, every single day for the rest of my life. It's not just justice, that's love. The kind of love that crosses death itself and transforms tragedy into triumph. The kind of love that saves lives and changes the world. The kind of love that makes monsters pay and survivors thrive. Twin love, sister love, the most powerful force I've ever known. Melissa would be proud. I know she would. And that's enough. That's everything. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.